What's up, guys? Welcome back to Will of DDT. My name is Anonymous, and today we are bringing you another highly anticipated video. For those of you who've been watching our channel lately, you've seen that we recently uploaded our deck profiles for NL and Purple Luffy, and so to round it out, we've got to bring you the third and final member of the Unholy Trinity. This is our deck profile for Blue Black Sakazuki. Yeah, man, not much to be said here. I tend to yap a little bit about how the leader functions and whatnot, because I'm usually talking to you guys about more off-meta things like Odin or Blurple Croc or Isho, but this guy really requires no introduction. But for the heck of it, let's look at the abilities anyway. Two crazy useful abilities, neither of which requires any Dawn investment. The first one is that you can trash one card from your hand in order to draw one card from your deck. Just, super consistent, allows you to cycle further into your deck. And the second ability is when attacking, you can minus any of your opponent's units by one cost, which is going to help you remove them effectively. So super useful leader abilities, and on what is objectively probably the best color combination in the game, this leader is just cracked, man. Super good leader. This is the meta-defining leader of the format, and while I don't think he's as, oppressive as people make him out to be, in the sense that other decks in the meta definitely have a shot at winning against him, this is the leader that everyone is building their decks around. There's no doubt about that. Every deck list is including answers that are specifically there to combat Sakazuki. So yeah, guys, you guys have seen plenty of lists for this leader, I'm sure, and they all look pretty samey, and I'm not going to lie to you, mine is going to look, again, pretty much the same, but I may have a few spicy picks in here that you may be interested to hear about. So without further ado, let's get into the deck list. Okay, guys, so before I start laying out the cards, I did just want to mention that the exact deck list you're about to see in this video, I did take to a locals pretty recently. Pretty competitive locals, aside from my first opponent, who is a new player, who was piloting RP Law. I played very skilled players who are piloting Purple Luffy in my second round, NL in the third round, and Whitebeard in the fourth round, and I actually did manage to beat them all, and I took first place. So I was really happy to see that this list is performing pretty well into a variety of decks. Pretty much got to play like most of the meta. Obviously been grinding a lot on the sim with this, but I was happy to take it to an in-person event and be able to take first place. So that was really cool. So yeah, let's get right into the list. As you guys know, there are a few staples that you just cannot do without in Sakazuki. So again, the list you see here, you're going to be seeing some cards that won't really be a surprise. Great Eruption, one cost, you can draw a card and then give -2 to one of your opponent's units. This is super useful. For one Dawn, you're -2, and then you're drawing a card, so you're keeping the hand size the same. This is helping you to remove your opponent's board while keeping your hand size healthy, which is really good. And then we've also got 3 copies of the Ice Age. Ice Age is one Dawn to give one of your opponent's characters -5 cost for the turn. That is insanity, just value-wise, how much you're getting for just one Dawn. That's why I like running 3. I see a lot of lists running 2, but for me, I really just do need to see this card at least once a game. I'm going to use this card, and it might seem like it's exclusively for your opponent's boss monsters, like those 9 and 10 costs, so that you can lower them down really far, and then with another Great Eruption or with leader ability you can finish it off. But even early game, even if Ice Age is overkill, so to speak, sometimes it's really helpful. NL's got the Ohm Holy combo, which can drop a 4 cost and a 3 cost side by side really early. And then likewise, Purple Luffy has got the Page 1 ulti combo. It does something similar, 2 pretty strong bodies on board, drop side by side. Ice Age is going to be able to help you take those out. Ice Age, along with the Lucci, is going to be able to help you take out those multiple cards when they're put down together. So if you got to use it early game, use it early game. Don't necessarily have this thought that it has to be saved for boss monsters, and don't trash it either. I know a lot of people like trashing Ice Age if they see it early game for the leader ability. I generally don't do that. This card is just too useful. Unless you see 2 of it, I always want to have one in my back pocket. Next up, we've got 2 copies of Hound Blaze. This card is just crazy, man. I mentioned it in one of our previous videos. This card is very few examples of power creep in One Piece, but if there was an example, this is it. 2 Dawn, you can give one of your leaders or characters plus 3,000 and then bottom deck a 2 cost. It's a removal and a buff. So for 2 Dawn, you're getting 3k power. That's already economical right there. Like towards the end of a game, if you've got to guarantee your swings, you can literally just use this to buff one of your units because you're gaining an extra, an extra 1k power out of it. You know, for 2 Dawn attaching versus 2 Dawn Hound Blaze, you're getting 3k power instead of 2k power. So you can literally just use this to help close out games and guarantee that your swings go through. But of course, obviously, the better use is to buff a unit and to bottom deck something else. You're going to minus the cost of your opponent's units to 2, and then you can bottom deck a 2 cost with Hound Blaze. Super strong card, and that pretty much rounds out our events for the deck. We are now running the 4 Rebecca. Again, you know, if you're playing Sakazuki, you cannot play without this package. You're running 4 Rebecca, and I'm just going to drop the other things alongside it here. 4 Rebecca, 4 Hina, and the final piece is 4 Lucci. Grab that. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, Lucci allows you to, on play, you have to bottom deck 3 cards from your trash, but after doing that, you can KO a 2 cost and a 1 cost on your opponent's side of the board. So you can KO 2 units. Of course, your goal is to use all these cards, all your cost reduction effects, to reduce the cost of your opponent's units to being within range of Lucci, and then you're going to drop the Lucci for 4 and kill 2 units at once. This is huge. This is really, really good. Allows you to KO those kind of mid-range units very nicely. With Ice Age, you can even KO some really big boss monsters along with some chump units alongside it. Lucci is fantastic. And like I was saying, Lucci plus Ice Age, if you got to use it early game to get rid of one of those double card combos like Olm Holy or Page 1 Ulti, it's a great way to use that card. Hina, of course, is on play, minus 4 cost to one of your opponent's characters this turn. She's a 3 cost 5k. So 5k is great because that means she can also swing eventually, but the cost reduction is also super helpful. And the crazy part is, as you all know, she's playable off of Rebecca. Rebecca is a blocker for 4 Dawn. You drop her and then you can grab a 3 cost, or actually anywhere from a 3 to 7 cost from your trash, and then you can play a 3 cost or lower from your hand rested. So generally the move is to trash Hina for your leader ability so you can draw deeper into your deck. Hina being in trash is totally fine because you're going to play Rebecca, put a blocker on board. Rebecca is going to play the Hina rested. Hina's going to minus the cost of one of your opponent's characters by 4, and that's going to put it into Lucci range. So you're going to drop Lucci. So for 8 Dawn, you can do Rebecca, Hina, Lucci, and KO generally like 2 of your opponent's kind of 5k, 6k bodies. Those mid-range units, you can KO 2 of them usually just by using this combo here, along with your leader ability to minus 1 of the units. Very, very strong and, you know, recyclable combo. And speaking of recycling, I am running a 1 of Mancherry. This is usually a 2 of in most Sakazuki lists. I just cannot find the space for a second one. But yeah, Mancherry is great. You know, she's a 1 Dawn card, and then you can spend 1 Dawn to rest her. She is a, you know, reusable ability. You can rest her. You have to bottom deck 2 cards from your trash, and then you can grab any card from your trash, any black card from your trash that's 3 to 5, a character. And then, yeah, you know, generally you're going to be using this to add Rebecca. Mancherry adds Rebecca. Rebecca plays Hina. After you drop Hina, you play the Lucci. Mancherry is useful. I only have the 1 again because I can't find space for her. I don't rely on her, so actually I'm fine with her being at 1. But when she does come up, she is very useful. She does come in very clutch to be able to grab those pieces from the trash that you want. So yeah, helpful card. And this combo right here is going to be like your bread and butter. You are going to be using that to KO your opponent's units in the mid game. Now we've got 4 copies of Brand New. It's pretty obvious. He is going to search for Navy cards. We have a ton of Navy cards on here already. All of your events, your Hina, and then a bunch of cards that we're about to see just now. And then in this deck, he serves kind of a dual purpose because on top of searching Navy cards, he's also trashing the 2 cards that you don't grab off his search, which is good because it loads up the trash for Lucci. Lucci needs to bottom deck 3 cards from the trash in order to get those kills. And so, you know, always want to make sure don't be dropping Lucci on board when you only have like 2 cards in your trash because you won't be able to do the effect. So Brand New is nice. It gives you a turn 1 play and, you know, loads up the trash for early game Luccis, which is nice. Next, we're running some 2K counters just because we have to. This deck does not have a lot of counter, so you are tasked with constantly removing your opponent's board. That's always your goal. Every turn, your opponent's going to put something down, and you are going to try to use the resources at your disposal to undo whatever they put down, to just send those units to trash or to the bottom of the deck, and to try to develop your own bodies. And one thing that's going to help, at least, counter out of whatever swings that your opponent does send your way with their leader and whatnot, it's going to be your Suru. It's a 2K, and then also in emergency she can kind of be used as a worse version of Great Eruption. She's a 1 Dawn -2 cost to your opponent's characters, so definitely tons of times where I have had to hard play the Suru, and yeah, I mean, if it's the right move, it's the right move, man. It doesn't feel good losing a 2K counter from hand, but it is, again, your priority with this deck is, since you have no counters, you always want to be clearing your opponent's board. You just have to constantly get rid of whatever they put down. Suru is going to help you do that, or help you defend, whichever. Tashigi is going to be our next 2K counter, also a Navy card, so searchable by brand new. She does have a similar effect to Suru, where she can minus something by 2, but she's pretty expensive, 3 costs. There are times where I put her down, especially if my opponent forces me to go odd curve, and I have 3 Dawn, I have a Suru in hand. Since I can't play any of my 4-drop units, I will play the Tashigi just to make cost minusing a little more efficient as we go into the mid game. But generally, I'm going to use Tashigi as a 2K counter. Cool thing is, she is a 3 cost, so she is also recurable by Mancherry or Rebecca. So you can actually, if you have a Hina in hand already, you can use Rebecca to grab Tashigi from trash just to recover a little bit of counter, and then you can play Hina from hand. So that is cool. You don't necessarily have to play off of Rebecca whatever you grabbed off her first effect. So oftentimes I will grab Tashigi from trash, just play the Hina from hand, and then follow it up with the Lucci. Moving on to a little bit more of our cost minusing effects, we have 3 of the 4 cost Kuzan. I've seen this card falling out of favor a little bit. People say, oh, it's such a big target for removal, your opponent's just going to get rid of it. It's like, yeah, sure, but, you still got to play it, In purple Luffy matchups, I might not play it just because depending on how their curve is going, I'll calculate whether or not they'll have the Dawn to play a poly next turn to kill this thing. But if they don't have the Dawn, I will most certainly drop this. In yellow matchups, very good to drop it. Mirror, not so much. It will get cleared pretty quickly. But yeah, just having it in the deck is nice. The fact is, it replaces itself in hand, so even if you play it and it gets, thrown off the board, at least you didn't lose anything from hand, right? You gained another card just for playing it. Kuzan is a really solid card, and that -4 is huge. This is really going to enable the Lucci to kill some really big things. Kuzan, using Kuzan effect to minus something by 4, and then just a Great Eruption to minus something else, Lucci is coming down and killing like 2 big units, which is super, super nice. Next up, we are moving on to some more kill cards here. We have got the 7 cost Borsalino. This is a really good card on play. You can bottom deck one of your opponent's 4 cost characters or less. So of course, using leader ability, Great Eruption, Ice Age, you're going to be able to hit a lot of things with this. Super solid card. Just keep in mind that you can't play Borsalino and a blocker in the same turn. All of your blockers are 4 cost or higher. And so, yeah, that's just something to be conscious of. The Borsalino, just be careful about that. Like, if you do need to defend next turn, you might be able to get rid of your opponent's unit, but if you have nothing to stop an attack at life and it's close to the end game, it might not always be the right move. Do keep in mind, again, that, like, Hina is a very common target to trash for the leader ability, but again, since you can't play Rebecca and Borsalino in the same turn, keep in mind it might be a good idea to save a Hina in hand. Sometimes if you see that a big unit might be coming, you can drop Hina for 3, and then you still have 7 to play the Borsalino to bottom deck whatever you just minused off of Hina. So yeah, just keep in mind the math, I guess, as you're playing these cards. Next up, we have 2 copies of Sakazuki. Now, this might be one of my more controversial picks, but at the end of the day, I just feel like the deck has a ton of cost minusing and not that much kill effects to follow up on that cost minus. Really, your main, like, kill cards are Lucci, the Hound Blaze, and 4 Borsalino. That's kind of the default in any Sakazuki deck. That's 12 cards, and 12 certainly is a respectable number, but the consistency bump I felt when I added these 2 Sakazukis going up from 12 kill cards to 14, it was just huge, man. I mean, I actually like this card. I know having to trash something from your hand is a big deal, but, you know, usually I find that I can afford it, and it usually swings the game very much in my favor because your opponent expects you to kind of have to jump through a lot of hoops in order to get your kills. You have to minus first and set up all these shenanigans and then finally play your kill card. Sakazuki just comes down and kills a 5 cost, man. I mean, that's insane. Like, you could actually, and again, I like the fact that he's a 6 cost because you can play this alongside a blocker. You can actually go Rebecca. Rebecca will play a Hina. Hina minuses something by 4. Leader Swing minuses something by 1. That would potentially bring down a 10 cost all the way to 5. Just with a Rebecca, Hina, Leader, that's a 10 cost all the way down to 5. Then you have 6 Dawn remaining. You can play Sakazuki and kill a 10-drop Big Mom or a 10-drop Kaido. I mean, this card is so much more efficient. You know, Hound Blaze is 2 for 2. Lucci is 4 to kill a 2 and a 1. Borsalino is 7 to kill a 4. Sakazuki is 6 for a 5. The disparity between how much he costs and how much he kills is much lower than the rest of your cards. So even though he costs a discard, he is really clutch. There are a lot of times where the math just works out very favorably with this guy versus some of the other cards in your deck. I really like him as a 2 of. Just once a game playing this guy, I've found it to be like a very kind of favorable swing for me. So I like Sakazuki, and I'm pretty happy with that. I know maybe a little controversial of a decision, but I'm enjoying it personally. Next up, 3 of the 4 cost Borsalino. This card is insane, man. 4 cost, 5k. On defense, it's a 6k. Can't be KO'd by effects. Also has counter. I mean, this card is just so stacked, man. It's insane. In the mirror match, this is going to be the GOAT. This is going to be the MVP card because it can't be Lucci'd. You know, in most matches, I know a lot of people are playing 4 of this. 3 seems a little blasphemous. But at the end of the day, most matches, I'm only really going to play 1, maybe 2 of this guy. In the mirror, definitely, I do want to see more of them because 1 will probably end up getting bottom decked by the 7 Borsalino. So I do want to see a second one to drop later in the game. But yeah, I mean, you're not generally going to be dropping more than 1 of them. So it's a good turn 2 play. Very, very strong in the mirror again. And yeah, just great that it can't be KO'd by effects. If you have it and you still have life, put him to work, swing with him. Your opponent has to devote more Dawn to fight him since he's a 6k on defense. Really good card. And searchable off of brand new, of course. And then last but not least, similar to Borsalino, we are running 2 copies of the Sabo. Sabo is going to be a 5 cost, makes your entire board not KO'able by effects for the next 2 turns, which is really solid against yellow. If I have a turn where I have quite a few units on board, let's say I've got a Kuzan, a Lucci, and a Sakazuki or something. If I know that I have multiple swings that turn, like 3 to 4 swings, I will drop a Sabo against yellow. I'll drop a Sabo in advance just so that I guarantee that no Thunderbolt out of life can kill my attackers. I'll be able to comfortably swing 6 with Lucci, 7 with Sakazuki, 5 with Kuzan, 5 with Leader, and Sabo is protecting them all from being KO'd by effects. So that is really nice, and he's also a little more cycle. On play, you get to draw 2, trash 2. So I do like this guy end game. He is a blocker that can't be KO'd by effects, so he kind of shuts down any 9-drop Kaido plays, things like that. And also, he allows you to cycle for counters. At the end of the game, if you're on one of those turns where it's like, okay, next turn I can guarantee that I'll win, Sabo is really great to drop because, you know, he allows you to pitch the non-counter cards from your hand, grab some counters, just add that little bit of defensibility for your opponent's next turn, and then the final turn, you'll close out the game with the number of swings you have. So really good card. Man, I freaking love this alt art. Not to get sidetracked, but yeah, I went to the For those of you who might be in and around the Chicagoland area, you might know that the One Piece official shop opened up, pop-up shop opened up just for about a week. So their last day in town was yesterday. I went to the sealed event and won second, so I got the Sabo card, and then the third place winner also got a Sabo card and managed to trade him for it. So very happy with these. If I was undecided about running 2 of these before, I'm pretty set on it now. Yeah, very solid. I do like it. The cycle is nice, and the on protection from KO is fantastic. So all right, guys, that rounds out the deck list, and yeah, now we'll just go up into a few words about different matchups, how to play the deck, and yeah, we'll wrap up the video there. So yeah, just some closing remarks on the deck here now. Yeah, by far your hardest matchup is going to be yellow, in my opinion. You know, NL is actually, I feel like, a much more fair matchup. Katakuri super tough because they just have that 10 Dawn win button. If the Katakuri player wins the die roll and gets to go second, it is very tough because they are going to hit their 10 cost Big Mom on curve, just delete one of your life. This deck has very little counter power like we discussed. I mean, just look at this list. There's almost no counter to speak of. It's crazy. So again, while I know Sakazuki is considered like this very frustrating deck to play against because it's constantly getting rid of your board every single turn, the thing is he has to do that because if he doesn't, he has no way to defend himself against multiple attacks incoming per turn. So yeah, you know, it's a hot take of mine. I know my fellow, my friends here at Will of DDT are going to roast me for saying this. They already have. But Sakazuki is a glass cannon, and I stand by that. You know, a glass nuke might be a more appropriate term. He's extremely efficient at killing, but at the same time, if you don't kill, you have very little defense. And you're kind of, even when you do win, you're kind of winning on the verge of death. I mean, Sakazuki doesn't, he has to take life often. You're the only thing saving you is the fact that you're only leaving your opponent's leader on board to do the swinging. You're constantly removing their units, but there is potential, especially if Purple Luffy hits that page 1 ulti combo, if NL hits that Ohm Holy combo early game. That is very tough pressure to have to deal with, especially if they put you on Odd Curve. Odd Curve really neuters this deck. It's not nearly as strong if you are working with the odd numbers of Dawn. But yeah, it is what it is. I actually did go Odd Curve for my matches against Purple Luffy and NL in that locals I was talking about earlier in the video. So I was happy to see it still was able to win, but it's a lot tougher for sure. But yeah, again, like I said, against yellow, you want to be strategic, swing with your blockers last, drop Sabo if you have the opportunity, save your board from Thunderbolts or L-Thors out of life, and then swing with if you've got a Borsalino on board, keep it up and, swing at the very end. If you swing a bunch of times and your opponent doesn't get any Perospiros, Crackers, Smoothies out of life, or Sanji's out of life, then you can kind of feel free to swing with your blocker, but there's always a gamble against yellow. You never know what's coming out of their life, and so I don't like to attach any Dawn when I'm swinging with this deck. Especially against yellow, I'm just going to go base swings. I'm going to go 6k with Lucci, 5k with Kuzan, 8k with Borsalino. Just see how they counter with it, and see what comes out of their life. And then if something does come out of their life, at least you still have your Dawn active to use your Great Eruptions, Ice Ages, Hound Blazes to try to get rid of the things that might be surprising you out of their triggers, right? So yeah, that's just one note. Against yellow, you want to be very careful about your swings. You want to attach as little Dawn as possible, even against other colors, to be honest. Try to go with base swings unless you're very sure you can close out the game. Yeah, I mean, besides that, Purple Luffy is going to be your best matchup. As long as they don't hit the page 1 ulti, you just got to be careful to watch out for their blocker law, so that it doesn't snipe cards out of your hand. Try to counter out of their first hit so that your hand size isn't too big. But yeah, always go second. Always try to drop Kuzan in the situation where you think it might be removed. Borsalino in the mirror, definitely Borsalino. But yeah, as you guys play the deck, you'll kind of spot what your opportunities are against different decks. What cards should you be discarding? What cards should you be holding on to for the late game? Definitely one thing to keep in mind is don't always discard. I mean, make sure the trash is live for Lucci to use it, but Sometimes I feel like Sakazuki players feel this need to use the leader ability. If your hand is really good, it's totally okay to just not use the trash ability. Sometimes, you know, that is the best play, just keeping your current hand, and just because you know it's the right move for whatever's going to be coming next in the game. It's very hard to pilot. Honestly, I think it's, you know, this is a little more, it's a high difficulty deck in my opinion, but it is definitely efficient. Once you get the hang of it and you're just murdering their board every single turn, I mean, you'll see why this is the meta defining deck of the format. Alright guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. Well, curious how you guys feel about the Sakazuki and maybe the 3 Ice Ages. Want to hear your guys' comments about that. Definitely keep your eye out. We're going to be posting more deck profiles for the OP5 meta here as we're going into Nationals. And we hope to see you guys in the next video. Peace.